guys? Okay. So let's proceed. I'm so sorry, man. I should have buttoned my shirt. I'm so sorry. It's pretty hot these days, isn't it? It's very hot. So as I was telling you, we talked a bit about Buddha and his life. I gave you some details. Now I intend to go ahead and discuss a bit about Jainism. Good evening, Spandan. Good evening. How are you guys? So I'm going to now talk about certain aspects of Jainism. You remember we talked about the entire Astic, Gnostic, difference. Astic philosophies believed in Vedic authority. Gnostic ones, they do not. They reject Vedic authority. Right? And it is, Gnostic philosophies emerged in the context of what do we call that? Shraman movement. More than 300 heterodox sects. What is heterodox sects? Heterodox is opposite of orthodox. An orthodox sect believes that it is my way and all the other ways are wrong. On the other hand, a heterodox sect believes there may be other ways as well. I propose this one for me. This is called as heterodox thought. It is opposite of orthodox. This is one of the symbols which is often used for representing, Jain and Jain ideas. So let's look at a brief history of Jainism and proceed from that point. Take care. Before we, the Jain notion of their time is very interesting, right? They believe that time, there's no beginning or an end to the time. It just continues in a cycle. It just continues in a cycle. They divide the one complete cycle into two half cycles. They call these Utsarpini and Avsarpini. Utsarpini is that half cycle where happiness, prosperity, lives of human beings, their strength, all that, etc., is continuously improving. On the other hand, the next half cycle is Avasarpini. We are currently in the Avasarpini half cycle. And here the human happiness and strength, their integrity, etc., they all are declining. They divide these half cycles into 6 sub-cycles, if you notice. The first period of Avasarpini is that when there is a sukh, happiness all around. Susam, susam. Basically, they are saying sukham, sukham. Second era, there's just sukham. Third era, sukham and dukham. In fourth era, dukham dominates the sukham. This is the time period, ending of third and fourth. In every Avasarpini, there is that 20, there are those certain illustrious people who come. Right? There are certain illustrious people who come to guide the rest of us. They are being called here as a Tirthankars. They are being called here as a Tirthankars. So every half cycle, they will have 24 Tirthankars. Okay? The current era is Dukham. And the last era will be Dukham, Dukham. There will be, utter misery all around. And then once again, the happiness will start increasing. According to Jain mythology, the Jain iconography, in fact, according to Buddhist and Hindu mythology as well, they all talk about a kalpa vriksha, also called as kalpatru, kalptaru. This is supposed to be a wish granting tree. So the Jains believe that this kalpavriksha somewhere got lost in these entire cycles. As the dukh starts increasing, this kalpavriksha is gone. The first Tirthankar in this current Avsarpini that we belong to. Remember, these cycles have been going on since all the time. We only know about this half cycle. We only know about 63 illustrious people of Jain history of this half cycle. These 63 people come to spread the Jain ideas. I think in one of my previous classes, I told you a word Trishashti, and I claimed that it means 36. I apologize. It actually means 63, not 36. It's 63. I reversed the number. I'm so sorry about that. So, ये देखो, Shalak Purush. These are those 63 individual, Trishashti. Trishashti, 63, Shalak Purush. That means illustrious persons. They are 24 Tirthankar, 12 monarchs or Chakravarti, 9 Balabhadra. I don't understand this Balabhadra concept much, but it primarily means they basically include Ram, Lakshman, and your Balram in these Balabhadra category. Right? Then there are 9 Narayan who are warrior heroes, and 9 Prati Narayan, anti-heroes. They are born to spread the idea of Jainism. Every half cycle they come. These are the 24 Tirthankars, their names and their symbols associated with them. The first is, of course, Rishabhnath. Right? This is Shantinath. These are the important ones which you can keep in mind. Mallinath, according to Shwetambars, the guys who wear the white, Shwet means white, right? So the guys who wear white cloth, they believe that Mallinath was a female. This is Neminath. He is the 22nd Tirthankar. This is the 23rd Tirthankar. Parshvanath. And 24th Tirthankar, Mahavir, his symbol was lion. One thing which you should immediately realize is that Buddha ended up establishing a new religion, but Mahavir was simply continuing an already existing religion. He just introduced certain changes and made it more popular because of his personality and presence and the philosophy which he gave. Right? This is one of the statues of Lord Mahavir, earliest statues of Mahavir. They come from Mathura region. In fact, it's around 1st century BCE, 2nd century BCE, that we will start noticing images of Buddha, images of Vasudeva Krishna, images of Mahavir, images of various Brahmanical deities. This will happen in the post-Mauryan era. Mauryan se bete rock cut architecture shuru ho jayega. And it is in the post-Mauryan era, those 3 schools of art will emerge. Gandhara, Mathura, and Amravati, the regional schools. Right? So he was born in 6th century BCE. His birth name was Vardhaman. Right? And Vardhaman was born to, his dad's name was Siddharth. Right? And his mother was Trishala. Like Buddha, he was also busy in living a very luxurious and pleasant life till he was around 30. And after that, I will tell you, man. Right? पहले जान तो ले क्या है, फिर I'm sure you will immediately understand it. Several people did. One was Kharvel, then quite a few people from Gujarat did, Karnataka as well. Right? So at 30, he left his palatial life and lived in, intense meditation and severe austerities, 12 and a half years. And after that, he attained Kaivalya, Gyan, omniscience. He preached for 30 years. Right? And then he finally passed away. Precise year of passing, the sects do not agree upon that. So Mahavir, his primary teachings, right? His primary teachings. So try and understand, as I was telling you, he was born to Siddharth and Trishala. And these guys, Siddharth and Trishala, they were, already practicing Jain lay people. They already worshipped Parshvanath. Achha, by the way, one interesting thing which I forgot to tell you, the entire Avsarpani, the 6 stages. So apparently, according to their legend and their cosmology, the first stage, Sukham, when everything was perfect, human beings were supposed to be around 4 miles tall. And then gradually, they started decreasing in height. Interesting. So it's pretty interesting to read if you look at it. As I was telling you, right? So his mom and dad were already Jains. And Parshvanath, they worshipped Parshvanath. At the time of Parshvanath, there were 4 great vow or, oath which people needed to take to join the, Jain monastic order. To join the Jain monastic order. These 4 were Satya, Ahimsa, Asteya. Right? Asteya. Yahan pe they have written chaurya, but the word is asteya. I will write it for you. Satya, ahimsa, asteya. That means do not take which is not yours. Do not steal, it means asteya. Right? Fourth is aparigraha. Aparigraha. What is aparigraha? Aparigraha means non-possession of property. Any property you will not own, non-possession of property. To these four Mahavrats, Mahavir added the fifth one, Brahmacharya. And thus made it the Pancha Mahavrat. Right? Mahavir's biggest contribution is in terms of philosophy. He gave the theory of Anekanta Vad. He gave the theory of Anekanta Vad. And where in this theory of Anekanta Vad, he talked about concepts such as Syadvad and Nayavad. Nayavad. Bottom line, what is Anekanta Vad? So basically he says, right, this is really wonderful what he does. He says that any statement which you pick, anything which is written or spoken, cannot be absolute truth. Absolute truth can only be experienced. Anything which is written down, it cannot express absolute truth. Because it is subjective. Okay, I'm sure नहीं समझ में आएगा, थोड़ा और मुझे बताने दो किसी दूसरे तरीके से. Let me try and explain it to you. So he basically says that every statement is basically a partial truth. There is no statement which is always going to be true. Right? So he said you should always be qualifying statements with syad, that this is true if that happens. For example, sun rises from east. No, not always. Sun rises from east if things are normal. Or let's say, for example, if the way we are defining east that way. Because even the earth is rotating. So these partial truth and statement, he said to analyze a situation, there are at least 7 points of views and each one of them equally correct and equally wrong. And you want to, if you want to attain kaivalya gyan, omniscience, then that can only be experienced by living in austerity and those Panch Mahavrat. This is some kind of an idea which I can give you at this point of time. His teachings were compiled by one of his chief disciple known as Indra Bhuti Gautam. And these are called as Jain Agams. Right? Most of these, बच्चे आप में से किसी का mic on है, I believe. दीपिका का है, दीपिका ने तो बंद कर दिया. ठीक है, I guess हो गया, problem sorted. Okay, so yeah, so these Jain Agams were compiled by Indrabhuti Gautam. By about 1st century CE, we are being told that due to fire and other kinds of divisions and migrations, the texts were lost. And in 1st century CE, when they were once again compiled, then they are considered to be, the Digambars. Then they start questioning. They say that, portions of it, they are not in agreement. Right? So their agams, their canonical literature, they have certain disputes. A couple of other Gnostic philosophies also, which I would like to introduce to you. One name which we will often hear is Charvak, also known as Lokayat, also called as Brahaspatya. Brahaspatya. Why? Because it is considered that sage Brihaspati founded this school. It is considered as the oldest materialistic school of India. It believed that there is nothing like pap or punya. It rejected doctrine of karma. It said this is the world which matters. There's no other world. It is this material world which matters. Live your life here. Enjoy yourself. Have, good things in life. Ajit Kesh Kambali is considered to be one of the main propagator of this Charvak philosophy. Another one is Ajivika. Ajivika, right? Founded by a person known as Makkali Ghoshal, a contemporary of Mahavir and Buddha. This school, Ajivika, they believe in the idea of a predestination or a niyati. Predeterminism, and predeterminism to a massive extent. That means they will claim that not only it is already destined that who among you will become IAS, who among you will become IPS, who among you will become something else, what is going to be your life like, everything has been decided beforehand. Not only this, this is understandable, right? Anybody who believes in destiny can argue on that. Their argument goes a step deeper, which is absolutely crazy, mind-boggling. They say that the niyati works to the level, it controls you to the level that when you are listening to me, when you're listening to this entire lecture here, every thought which passes your head is predestined. So they are taking it to an entirely new level, the idea of niyati. Why is Ajivika important? Ajivika is important, although these Charvak and Ajivika, they no longer survive. But they are important because, especially Ajivika is important because the earliest rock cut architecture, the caves, will be dedicated to Ajivika sect, right? Uh, let's start taking up a bit, certain aspects about Mauryan times and see how we can proceed. All right, man. So let us try and have a look at Mauryan times, right? You remember I mentioned Daya Dochi Wars. I told you that in 323 BCE, Alexander died here in Babylon, Mesopotamia. And he died, and immediately his generals, his so-called friends, his family, they started fighting over his empire. They started fighting over his empire, in fact, so ludicrously that they lost the dead body. Alexander's dead body was lost, was stolen by somebody. They were so busy. This was the end of Alexander the Great. Crazy if you look at it, isn't it? So anyway, the wars began and the wars continued, as you can see. From 322, they continued till 281 BCE. But somewhere, the entire Asian region, do you see? The entire Asian region, modern day Turkey, is also known as Anatolia or Asia Minor, right? So this entire yellow region, it came under the most powerful general of Alexander, Seleucus Nicator, right? And he established the Seleucid Empire, and they became the neighbors of the fledgling Mauryans. So now we hear of this one fellow called as a Chandragupta Maurya, right? And so we are being told that Chandragupta utilized the opportunity, the entire mayhem, right, which the invasion of Alexander had created in the northwest. He used it to first control the peripheries, mainly the Punjab region, the Punjab Plains region. He managed to control that. He defeated the regional local republics which were present there. There were certain, you remember I told you that a lot of republics were present in Punjab region, Indus Basin, such as Yaudeha. So they were defeated, and then all the Greek satraps or governors whom Alexander had appointed, they were kicked out, and Punjab region was captured. And Yaudeha and all, Chandragupta Maurya and Kautilya, they together managed an army, and then they captured Pataliputra as well. They managed to dethrone the last Nanda ruler, Dhananand. How? We hear of this very interesting play called as Mudra Rakshas, written by Vishakh Datta. Vishakh Datta was one of the 9 gems of Chandragupta Vikramaditya, the Gupta ruler. The Gupta ruler. Right? So he was a contemporary of Kalidas. And in chaste classical Sanskrit, he wrote this drama called as Mudra Rakshas. What does it talk about? Mudra Rakshas. Mudra Rakshas is a massive book. It basically, Mudra means a ring, right? And Rakshas was a minister of Dhananand, right? A very senior minister. In this drama, in these entire acts of this drama, Chandragupta, Kautilya has been depicted as entertaining Amatya Rakshas at his residence. So basically, they are talking, they are whining, they are dining, and Kautilya is, continuously flattering him, ensuring that he gets more and more drunk. And as he starts to lose his consciousness, Chanakya manages to steal his ring out of his finger. In those days, all these senior ministers, if they wanted to send a royal order, they would sign it using that ring as a seal. So that ring was stolen. And then fake orders were passed. Fake orders were passed. And as a result, they managed to easily dethrone the Nand empire. Once they managed to capture the core, now Chandragupta Maurya looked westwards towards Seleucus Nicator. Towards Seleucus Nicator. This is the ruling period of Chandragupta. Fair point. Very fair point. Very fair point. Very fair point. Which deduction are you bothered, Ankita? Akshita, I'm so sorry. Okay, I agree. It's a drama, and in fact, it's a drama which will be written. This event, if anything, it happened in 320s, and 320s BCE, and this drama will be written in around 300 and in around 400 CE. That means more 700 years later. So we cannot precisely immediately accept what they are saying as correct. But yes, what we can glean out is that all kinds of conspiracy must have been utilized. Another information which can be gleaned out is that the role of the ministers must have been very important. I think, Akshita, probably you are referring to this chronology. That first Punjab and again, mostly we are looking at, the sources that we are referring to will be Megasthenes Indica, right? And Arthashastra, the locations of the Edites. These are few of the books probably. How so? No, no, please remember, bache, we are not relying only on this book. No, no, I was just telling you this in the context of how they might have taken over Pataliputra. That is all. It's an interesting, fascinating story, and this book is a part of classical Sanskrit. So this is why I discussed it here itself, so that you can recall it. But yes, we are relying on books which were written. A lot of Greek and Latin records also exist, which were written pretty much on the same, in the same time as well. For example, Megasthenes. No, no, no. We are not treating it as an established fact. It's a work of fiction. We are saying it. It's a work of fiction. We are not taking it as an, established fact. Not at all. Okay. So this is the period of their rule, Chandragupta Maurya, 324 or 321, one of these 2 years, to 297 BCE. From 297 BCE, his son took over. His son was Bindusar. By the way, Chandragupta Maurya, in Greek and Latin accounts, he has been called as Sandrokotos or Androkotos. Right? This is the name with which they are referring to him. So, as I was telling you, the Mauryan Seleucid face-off took place somewhere around 305 BCE. The Mauryan Seleucid face-off took place. We do not get a lot of evidence of a war, but people do believe that for these 2 years there were certain hostilities. A treaty was signed. This treaty has been seen in both Indian texts as well as Greek texts. So a treaty, we find a treaty which has been signed between the two. And if you look at the terms of the treaty, then it does seem that Mauryans had a huge advantage against Seleucid. One reason could be that Seleucid and Seleucus Nicator, they were much more involved on the Western front fighting the Diadochi war. So they probably bought peace with Mauryan by giving them a lot of extra territory. They said, all right, you be quiet. Let me first tackle these fellows. So a Mauryan Seleucid war took place, and Chandragupta Maurya seemed to have, trumped Nicator. A treaty was signed as part of terms of treaty. This entire region, do you see? Till now he was just here, but now he has got an area even till here. This is southern Afghanistan, known as Kandahar. This is Gandhara. This is Kandahar. Very nice, Vishal. Very true, very true. In fact, if you look at the terms of the treaty, what you are saying, Vishal, will make a lot of sense. You know what the terms of the treaty were? I will tell you. The terms of the treaty were Seleucids agreed to give the region till Kandahar. They accepted Mauryan suzerainty. It was also announced that both will have ambassadorial presence at each other's court. Right? So immediately Seleucus Nicator sent the first Greek ambassador, called as Megasthenes. He came to India and stayed at Pataliputra and wrote the book Indica about India in general and Mauryans in specific, and the Mauryan Empire in specific. right? The next term of the treaty was that Chandragupta Maurya was married to the daughter of Seleucus Nicator. A matrimonial alliance was entered into. The two rulers also agreed to encourage intermarriages between the two societies, between the two set of people, Greeks and Indians. And in return, the Guptas were supposed to give 500 war elephants to Seleucus Nicator. And Vishal, you're correct. These 500 war elephants were used on the Western Front. Beta, I really do not have. He must have married, several. He must have several wives. In fact, in those days, I'm sure you would agree, right? Must have married several people. For them, it was more of a strategic decision. Although I am not available about this, I am not sure about this Durdhara. I have not heard this name. No, not necessary. What are you talking about, Parthamesh? What have they given in the Tamil Nadu book? Oh, nice. Very interesting. Durdhara. She was the daughter of Dhananand. Interesting. Any other thing that we need to know about her, or that's all? Oh, 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 interesting. Nice. Uh, very interesting. चलिए आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं राइट बात को. So this is how the Mauryan Chandragupta Empire looked like here, right? Uh, During his old age, right, in when he was getting old in around 297 BCE, he left the throne. He left the throne. He became a Jain monk, right? He became a Jain monk, and uh, okay. Thanks, man. Thanks. Interesting information. Very true, Akshita. Very true. It does not really. It's simply a mode of communication that we'll communicate with each other. So basically, what happens here is he becomes a giant monk. And at this stage, Magad is facing this entire middle Gangetic plain is facing a 12-year long famine. And a lot of giant monks, around 12,000 giant monks, including Chandragupta Maurya, the founder of the Mauryan Empire, they went to along the Dakshin Path. They walked all the way to reach near Mysore, a place called as a Shravan Belgola, under the leadership of a giant monk known as Bhadra Bahu. Bhadra Bahu. And here, under the guidance of Bhadra Bahu, Chandragupta Maurya at Shravan Belgola, he performed what has been called as Salikan or Santhar. What is Salikan? Anyone? क्या कोई मुझे बताने की कोशिश करना चाहेगा? You can also switch on your mic if you want, man. I would love to hear the voice of my students, dude. Come on. What is Salikan? Not bad, Spandan. Very nice, very nice. Very good, Vinod. Well done. Absolutely correct. Yep, absolutely correct. So basically, he performed a Salekhan. This is a very interesting ritual followed by Jains. You know, I'll give you a brief idea about their interesting philosophy here. You know, so you know how the Jains look at the entire process. Very interesting. They say that when you're born, the Jeev, right? They believe Jeev is very important, isn't it? And they believe that yeah, I think I will talk about this. I think I will talk about this. I think you should know about this. This is very interesting, actually. So, what they say is that, you know, we all have a jeev, and my jeev is as precious as the jeev of a germ, coronavirus, or any insect. Not virus, I presume that will be a wrong analogy, but you get the point. Basically, any living being's jeev is same. And when it is born, especially the human jeev, when it is born, it's very pure. I mean, everybody's jeev is pure, but human being, what happens is, as the human being starts to grow up, because of their action, they start harming other jeevs. Because of the kind of, let's say, for example, because of the kind of occupation that I practice. Fair, absolutely. Right. Suppose I do something which ends up harming a lot of jeev. For example, let's say I am a farmer and I plow my fields. What will happen if I plow my fields? A lot of worms will be killed. And all this will lead my jeev, my this pure jeev, it will be cluttered all around by these karmic particles, they call it. And the jeev will be confounded. In fact, Jains, they do not allow farming in their religion. This is why Jains are very good traders. Others, others also facing the same issue. Okay. Akshita, एक बार try कर बच्चे, please. All right. Okay, fair. So as I was trying to tell you here, so they believe that okay. Thank you so much, everyone. So जैसा मैं बोल रहा था, मैं फिर से बात को शुरू कर रहा हूँ. I was trying to say that what was the point? Where were we? Jeev. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. So this is why, in fact, I'm sure you will know this, that Jains are not into farming. And this is why Jains are wonderful traders, because by their religion, they cannot take up farming. So the other activity available is trading. Okay. So the point being that so now, if you want to attain salvation, you need to get your jeev in the pure form. How can you do that? You can do that by coming to Jainism, by coming to the fold of Jainism and trying to climb this ladder, which has 14 steps. Each step is like a guidebook. This is what you're supposed to do. Leave all these kinds of occupation. Eat only this, this, this. You're not supposed to eat anything which grows inside the ground. Isn't it? These are some kinds of uh, things which happen within Jainism, and then gradually a stage will come where the mic khul gaya hai yaar. Ankit Babu. So as I was all right. So as I was trying to say, क्या बोल रहा था रुको मैं मुझे याद आ जाएगा, don't worry, I'll figure out. So as I was trying to say that yes, a stage reaches when, after following all these things, when not eating anything, lehsun, pyaz, this is why Jains never do that. The stage will come where the jeev will no longer acquire any new karmic particles, but it is still surrounded by karmic particles, confounded. Now you start the process of nirjara. You stop taking meals gradually, क्योंकि भाई पेट की वजह से ही तो you have been killing these jeeves. So now you start giving up. You even start walking while you are dusting the floor to ensure that by no ant or insect dies, because unknowingly you end up killing them. And gradually you keep on doing this. You will not eat for 1 day, you will not eat for 2 days, you will start giving up you know take care, man. Take care, man. God bless you. Take care, man. uh, so the time you will start giving up meals, and then gradually these karmic particles will be shredded, and one time will come when you will reach the 13th step, right? At 13th step, your jeev will be pure, no more karmic particles. Jeev is pure, it can see precisely what is going on, it can see the reality of the world. It has attained Kaivalya Gyan. It has risen above those, naya or partial truths. But at this stage, the body is absolutely weak. Body is absolutely weak. So people who are able to reach here, they die. But some virle, some awesome individuals, namely the 24 Tirthankars, they managed to, even in this sordid state of their body, they managed to get up and teach and spread the message. These are called as the Tirthankars. Right? And this entire process, this entire 14-step ladder kind of a thing, Jeev is, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Jeev is your soul. Buddhism does not believe in soul. One of Buddha's very famous statement was, na Atma, na Paramatma. He said, stop talking about these things which you cannot answer. This was Buddha's attitude. He said, we cannot answer such questions because we have not experienced it. So he said, let's not waste time pondering about these questions. No, rather live an ethical life here and now. And apparently, look at this irony. Buddha specifically asked people not to get into unnecessary philosophical discussions. In fact, Buddha had identified 7 or 10 questions, such as, does God exist or does soul exist? And he asked people never to ask any of these questions because he said such discussions have no point. And this is ironical, right? Because on one hand, this is what Buddha said. And on the other hand, you see that there are so many schools of Buddhism which have emerged on the basis of philosophical differences. Because people did not follow Buddha's advice. Achha, did you guys manage to read about that thing that we were talking? Ashtangika Marg. Did you manage to read anything about it? Gunashekar, please allow me to talk about it in the post-Mauryan times. That is when the split will happen, right? Anything interesting that you would like to tell me? How many of you read it? I'm sure most of you must have. But anything interesting? I'm saying, did you find anything interesting with Ashtangika Marg? Were you able to understand? Ashtangika Marg has a threefold division. Try and find it out and understand it. It'll help you guys in your paper 4. Fair conclusions, Sunil, I guess. Fair conclusions. Yeah, Dikshita. This is what I wanted. Very nice. Very nice. What is wisdom? चलो ये सब तो मैं अभी बात नहीं करूंगा तुम लोगों से, तुम लोग कहोगे नहीं थे पागल हो गया क्या? चलिए आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं बात को अभी हम थोड़ा सा और, and taking you guys ahead. So I was telling you that Chandragupta, he climbed these stairs and he performed the Salikan. It is also known as Santhar, right? In 2015, Rajasthan High Court banned this practice. They called it nothing but glorified suicide. The Jain community went to Supreme Court demanding protection under Article 26. And they said that this is an integral part of Jain ethic. And the Supreme Court agreed with them. And they lifted the ban. They lifted the ban. At Shravan Belgola, right, at Shravan Belgola in 983 CE, in 983 CE, CE, not BC, CE, a statue was constructed. This is the world's tallest monolithic statue, carved out of granite, 17 meters tall. And this statue is of Gomateshwar, Bahubali. Gomateshwar, Bahubali. According to Jain, mythology, Rishabh was the first Tirthankar, Rishabhnath. He had several sons. And he was a huge, he was a massive monarch. He's known as father of human civilization, according to Jains. Rishabhnath decided to give up everything in his life and become a, Jain. He started the entire thing, right? He was the first Tirthankar. So he decided that he is going to give up his entire kingdom to his son, Bharat. Right? And so when Bharat was entering Ayodhya, okay, apparently that was their capital, when he was entering it, a voice told him that, your brother Bahubali, Gomateshwar Bahubali, is still ruling a small kingdom like a free king. So you cannot be a Chakravarti Samrat. And unless you're a Chakravarti Samrat, you cannot enter the palace. So Bharat went back. Rishabhnath went back. And Bharat challenged Bahubali to fight with him. And they fought. Several rounds of, competition were decided upon. And apparently Bahubali defeated each one. In each one of them, he defeated Bharat. And after finally defeating him in the final contest, Bahubali had a huge realization dawned upon him. That what is he doing? Why is he fighting for a throne and going against the wishes of his brother and his dad? And at that point of time, he dropped everything which he had and stood there motionless for 1 year doing meditation in this posture, This posture is called as a Kayot Sarg. This is the most important pilgrimage site of for Jains in India, right? Okay, so bhai Chandragupta Maurya, so he went to down south. He went to down south and got his santhar and everything done. Meanwhile, he gave the throne to his son Bindusar. Bindusar, we are being told that he ruled from 297 to 273 BCE. Greek and Latin records refer to him as Amitraghat, as Amitraghat or Amitroket. It is believed by scholars that it is Bindusar who managed to invade peninsular India and bring it into the fold of a Mauryan Empire. Although not much is known about him, in his late retirement age, he joined Ajivika sect, the one which preached Niyati. He joined that. He hated Ashok. He did not want Ashok to become the king, right? And it is believed that he's the one who actually captured the peninsular region, a lot of it, because when we know that Ashoka fought only one major war, and that is the Kalinga war. That means Ashoka only got the Orissa region. Rest everything must have been done by Bindusar, right? Now let's have a look at the third emperor of Mauryan dynasty, Ashoka the Great, also known as in his inscriptions, he prefers to call him as Devanam Piyadasi. This is Pali version. Sanskrit must have been Devanam Priya. That means beloved of gods. And Priyadarshi means handsome to look at, good to look at, right? So he must have been a very narcissistic kind of a chap, probably. I don't know, right? But a couple of incidents. Priyadarshi, yeah, in that sense also some people prefer to call him that, looking at everybody with kindness. Yes, Trushali, you're correct. Right, that is also one way to look at it. Who looked at everybody with the prem bhav, right? Apparently he liked the tree of Ashok very much, and so initially when these Britishers came in, right, and they saw these strange kind of scribblings on rocks and pillars, they were not able to figure out what is this going on. They were not able to find out who's this Devanam Piyadasi. In most of the inscriptions, he is not mentioned by the name Ashok. That connection was built later, right? He also had several of wives, right? So one very interesting incident which took place. All right, so we have Ashoka, right? He became a Buddhist, we know that. Um, a lot of Buddhist books, right? Not the religious literature, not the canonical literature. A lot of Buddhist books talk about Ashok as well. For example, Ashok Vadan, Ashok Avadan, Divya Avadan. In Buddhist literature, there are texts which are called as Avadan texts. What are Avadan texts? They Try and explain good things happening to you in this life. Through the good deeds which you did in the previous lives. The good things which you're doing, the good things which are happening to you are being explained through the good things which you have done in your previous lives. So this is the kind of story which we find here in Avadhan literature. So for Ashok, that is also a very interesting piece of information. Although, please understand that these can be exaggerations as well. For example, in one incident, we are being told that one of Ashoka's wife, right, she made a small remark on his looks. And Ashok had her crushed by elephants. Right? And again, why am I telling you this? Dhyan rakho bachche. These books, they have a tendency to villainize Ashok pre-Buddha and glorify him post-Buddha, because they will try and show the two extreme. They will try and portray Ashok as very bad person before Buddhism and a very good person, very good boy after Buddhism. So there's that tendency as well, which we should watch out. Right? Bindusar, as I was telling you, did not want Ashok to be the king. Ashoka, although Bindusar had died, if you see, Bindusar had died, he passed away in 273 BCE. But Ashoka, he took 5 years to properly control the entire structure in his hand. He was challenged by his brothers. But he finally, by 268 BCE, he managed to sit on the throne of Patliputra and rule strongly from that point onwards. Right? He started rock cut architecture. I think I've mentioned it already like 3-4 times. This is what he had constructed. Right? Barabar and Nagarjuni hills in Jahanabad district, Bihar. Right? Here in these Barabar and Nagarjuni hills, these are like these hills, right? Where earliest man-made caves have been cut. And they have been cut on the orders of Ashok the Great and his grandson, Dashrath. 10 years after death of Ashoka, his empire will be partitioned and weakened a lot. ये भी शायद एक ध्यान रखने वाली बात है हम लोगों के लिए. Right? So this is the famous Lomas Rishi cave entrance. Right? These are Nagarjuni hills. Ashoka conquered Kaling in 260 BCE. And after capturing Kaling, entire subcontinent, if you see, except southern Karnataka, Kerala, and your Tamil Nadu, everything else was under the Mauryan control. After the Kalinga War, when he saw, death of so many people, thousands died, it somewhere touched him. It somewhere, made him realize that this is not sustainable. And he became a Buddhist. In his own words, the way he's describing in his inscriptions, he left the path of I forgot, man. Chalo, I'll tell you later probably. He basically says that, I'm leaving the path of war and conquest by war. I'm leaving that path of conquest by war. Now I'm taking up conquest by Dhamma. He organized the third Buddhist council in 250 BCE at Patliputra. The entire empire, if you see, it was divided into 5 provinces, right? Uttarpath region. In fact, no, let me put this map. A lot of scholars, including Romila Thapar and quite big shots from outside India, they argue that this is a wrong interpretation of Ashokan Empire. Because Mauryan administration, Mauryan power was not so evenly spread. They say that large chunks of the territory were simply out of the reach of Mauryan administration. And they prefer this kind of territorial reach with these gaps notable. One very important element through which this territory has been identified are Ashokan Pillaredites. His inscriptions, which we have discovered at so many places, including Kandahar in southern Afghanistan. But these regions, crucially, are without any inscriptions from Ashoka. The Western Ghats, of course, this region, your Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu region, this is your the tribal lands, if I may call it, the Orissa mainland, Kaling's mainland, and Chhattisgarh region. That region, isn't it? Yeah, so this was not in their control, including Rajasthan doesn't seem to have any sense of Mauryan suzerainty. According to Kautilya's model of Arthashastra, which he gives, right, he visualizes a lot of mandals or small kingdoms, right, and the entire landscape he calls it a Raj Mandal, a Rajya Mandal, Rajya Mandal. And in Arthashastra, this fellow Kautilya, he gives advice. We will talk about that, Akshita. That's the most important topic, right? I will talk about it. Acha, Akshita and everybody, I also want to tell you guys one thing here. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, I have requested Career Launcher people to please cancel my classes, right? I will be really tied up, and I also need some time, to not think about classes, because otherwise, what happens with me is, I'm continuously thinking about the class. I need to do this, that, isko wahan karna hai, isko aise karna hai. Especially these few topics, because I was not very well prepared with these topics. I had to do my, last minute research. So I have been, throughout involved with this. So I am planning to take an off tomorrow and day after, right? They will put in another classes. I wanted to take an off today as well, but it was not possible for them to arrange an alternative. Uh, but yes, okay. Iske baad we will be again back on track, and they will give you alternate classes. Don't worry about that, right? So I'm just trying to explain a couple of things. We are talking about Ashoka, right? Kautilya. I'm just giving. Acha, ek baat. I think I should make it very clear to you. No. Don't worry. It won't be of history. It will be some other subject. Definitely. Don't worry. Don't worry. So as I was trying to tell you that Arthashastra, the book, it is written by three names that we hear. In the book itself, there are three names which have been used as author: Kautilya, Chanakya, Vishnugupta. Right? Some people claim that all three are three different persons. They also argue that if you carefully look at the entire Arthashastra is a huge book. It has like 15 volumes, I believe. So if you look at all these books, you will also notice change of language, changes in language happening over, a century or so. So probably it was not, work of one individual. It may have been in work of three different individuals as well. In Arthashastra, right, Kautilya mentions very interesting word which I want to talk about. So he says that Vijijishu, he's talking to a Vijijishu, an ambitious young ruler who wants to become a Chakravarti Samrat. Who's a Chakravarti Samrat? Who controls the land from Himalayas to the seas. So he is giving him advice how you can, in a step-by-step manner, manage your saptang. He is even going to the level of giving you details of torturing. How should you torture people? How many spies should you use against your elder brother? How to ensure that your dad is not going to give the throne to somebody else. So he goes into the real dark psyche. Right? It's a very interesting book, which is talking in the solely in the context of how you can become the king, the most successful king. It also has elements of welfare state. Arthashastra also has elements of welfare state because it carefully says to the king that if you will ignore the discontent of the people, you will face Janpad Kop. Anger of the Janpad. He compares a king. This is a beautiful idea, analogy. He compares a king to a pregnant mother. Just like a pregnant mother, she doesn't even eat anything. No matter how tasty it is. She wouldn't even eat a thing which is not good for the kid. Similar is the role of the Swami, the king. And then he also gives us this very interesting idea. He says that, your neighbor is your enemy. And enemy's enemy is a friend. right? So these kinds of some interesting aspects he also gives us. Saptang, I have, Saptang theory, I told you about those 7 elements. Within Saptang, within this entire thing, income tax department, its slogan comes from Arthashastra. Kosh Mulo Dandah. That means a kosh, your treasury, is the foundation of a strong state. Right? So this is coming from the slogan of IT department. A small question for you. I want you guys to go and attempt a question. Right? What are the lessons that we can learn from Arthashastra? What are the lessons that we can learn from Arthashastra relevant to the governance of India? The lessons that we can learn which are relevant for the governance of a country like India, which are still relevant in 21st century. Okay, I have given you some ideas. I agree. I have not given you, absolutely exhaustive Arthashastra kind of a thing. Probably I will, maybe. मैं करा दूंगा तुम्हारे लिए 10-15 मिनट के कुछ और pointers हैं जो निकल सकते हैं, I guess. Right? But I would also suggest you to think on this line, and maybe if you can attempt a question, share the answer with me. I would love that. Right? These are some of the pillars as well. Right? Ashokan pillars. See how shiny they are. Look at the way they are tapering. They are tapering. I'm saying, what are the lessons that we can derive from Arthashastra which are relevant in 21st century in the context of governance of India? I know I've not worded it perfectly. I am sorry. But you get the basic idea probably. Okay. These are the Brahmi. This is the Brahmi script. And these are the edites. What is edite? We always hear this word, pillar edites. What is the meaning of the word edite? No. Edite basically means royal order. These are orders of Ashoka. These are like Shasana Adesh. Exhortations to people that this is what you're expected to do. Dekho bache, this is what probably we should understand, and this is probably the most important aspect of the entire personality of Ashoka. One way to look at him is, through that lens which Buddhist text wants us to look at. That he just became so overwhelmed with violence that he changed his tack and came to the refuge of Buddhism. But if we carefully look at it, then we will realize Ashoka seems to have a larger agenda here. He's trying to unify regions, people at a time when there are a lot of changes which are happening. There's a lot of social inequality which is growing. People are settling. You remember I told you, kinship-based society is in tatters. So Ashoka uses the popularity of Buddhism and its symbolism and had these pillars inscribed, made and inscribed, where he had it written that people need to follow the Dhamma of peace, the Dhamma of Buddha. They must do this. They must do X, Y. Thank you so much, Dikshita. Thank you so much, Vete. Thank you so much, man. Bhir Ghosh. He left the policy of Bhir Ghosh and took up the policy of the Dhamm Ghosh. Very true. Thank you so much. So these pilaridites, right? Uh, he had them inscribed with his orders. And these orders are such that, for example, he's actually a very smart man. He's actually a very smart man. His inscriptions, this is how they began. Devanam Piya Piya Dasi, you know, great man into the 32nd year of his this, that, this is what he's done. And then paragraph change and immediately it will go to first person, as if Ashoka is directly now saying his thought. So this is a direct communication. This is like a man ki baat in that time. This is a direct, intimate connection between the monarch and the people. But, let me, hang on. I'll come back to these points because I think I need to, right? Just give me a couple of more attempts at it. I'll come to this point in a while again. So, oh, Bheri, acha, it's Bheri. All right, all right, all right. Okay, Bheri Ghosha, that entire trumpet kind of a thing, probably. Oh, drums it is. All right, all right. Bheri. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes much more sense. I'm so sorry. Yeah, makes much more sense. All right. So this is the better kind of an understanding that we will have in our head, right? Again, Romila Thapar has done some good work here. She again believes that the Mauryan Empire was such that, देखो समझना जरा सा please, they had around 5 provinces, right? Uttarpat, the capital was Takshila, right? Then there was a Magad, the capital was Pataliputra. This is where Ashoka sat. This is where the emperor sat, seat of power, right? The third was Prachyapat, the capital being Ujjain, right? Third one was Dakshinpat, right? The capital being Suvarnagiri. And last one was this coastal Kalinga region, and the capital being Toshali. The capital being Toshali. There was a name to this, just like it had Prachipat, there was a name for it. Kalingpat to nahi kuch aur kehte the. I'm forgetting the name again. My memories, after using this presentation, I've become more and more dependent here, I believe. But yeah, I'll recall and put it somewhere, don't worry. This is the port that I was talking about. You remember Tamra Lepti, the port in Bay of Bengal. So according to Romila Thapar, what she believes is that the entire model of functioning of a Mauryan Empire was based on this division. They had the metropolitan here in Magad, and they had the core regions here around Takshila, around Ujjain, around Suvarnagiri, and around, around Toshali. The objective of the empire was to get the surplus from these core regions to the metropolitan region. Meanwhile, ensuring that the peripheries are kept in check. Meanwhile, ensuring that the peripheries are kept in check. You get the point, guys? Magad is the metropolitan region, and the other provinces are the core region. The objective is to get their surplus to Magad, and meanwhile ensuring that the peripheries, these tribal areas, all that is kept in check. If you look at it, the other way to look at and understand Ashoka is that Ashoka realized and understood the importance of this coastal trade and this route. He needed this access. This is the sole reason why he went to war with Kaling. And after controlling this war, after defeating Kaling, capturing Kaling, he now had no other reason to go for Bheri Ghosh. And now he started focusing on the administrative unification, ensuring that things run smoothly. So no, I will be talking about certain aspects of Ashoka's Dhamma and his personality in my next lecture. Point wise, I would prefer that much better rather than recalling things from my head and trying to pour it out. That doesn't work. So instead what I will do is I am going to give you some idea about their Mauryan administrative system. This is pretty factual, so we can quickly deal with it. Right? I had material prepared for it, so we can do it immediately. Okay, I would not comment, Akshita, because if you look at it, I mean, I still, first of all, I still need to make a couple of points here, which I think a lot of us will not be aware. So I would like to make them first. I would like to first expose to you what is Ashoka's Dhamma, what is precisely he's saying, right? So first, let's wait for that. I'll show you exactly what they're like 7, 8 pointers that you need to understand in their correct context. We will look at them and then you can, I think, understand. I think most of it, what you're saying is correct. But I think the way you're saying it is probably a notch, a degree more extreme. Probably. Okay, but yeah, but I promise, I'll talk about that, those aspects separately. These are certain details of the Mauryan Empire that we know of. For example, from Indica, we know that their Mauryan army was managed by 6 committees, which had 5 members each, right? Navy ke liye, there was a different committee, transport and provision, infantry, cavalry, chariots, war elephants, right? Such were the infantry. It is reported as a 6 lakh. The cavalry, 30,000, and 9,000 war elephants, right? And these were the weaponry which was used. Arthashastra, however, gives a slightly different structure. But remember, देखो problem एक बात समझो बच्चे. Can you tell me what is the problem with the Indica as a source? Think about it. It's a foreigner, so probably he's not too sure about things. He may be getting half of the things wrong. That's one point. Okay. What about Arthashastra? Arthashastra also has a limitation as a source. Arthashastra is an advisory book. It is listing a set of advice. It is not mentioning Ashoka. It is not talking about Magad. It is talking in general terms. It is talking like a template. And it is giving you advice. It is not telling us that this is how things happened. Same is the problem with Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra also tell us that this is how it should happen. Were they actually happening that way? We cannot say that. Based on Dharma Shastra, we cannot. Let's have a look at their bureaucracy, right? Their bureaucracy. Mauryans managed to control this large scale on the subcontinent because of their bureaucracy, right? We hear of 18 Tirth or ministers. There were 27 adhyaksh, pretty much close to like departments. And then there were those ministers and officers, Matyas and Amatyas. These are some of the terms which are now beginning to appear. Mantri, Mantri Parishad Adhyaksh. A lot of these terms I would expect you to understand intuitively. Isn't it? Samharta. This is revenue collector. So this is one word I would expect you to keep it in mind. Right? Shulkadhyaksha. Okay? Sannidhat, head of treasury. Right? Karmantika, head of industries and factories. You see this? Rajuka, this was the same term which was used in Vedic age as well for land measurement. Pradeshika, district administrator, like the collector. Akara Adhyaksh, the mining officer. Lakshana Adhyaksh, coin minting. Lavanya Adhyaksh, the salt department. Lavana Adhyaksh, I should say, sorry. Ayudha Adhyaksh, weapon manufacturing. Panya Adhyaksh, officer of commerce and department. You remember those Pani? Remember the Pani, the people. From there, the word, commerce comes in. Akshapatal Adhyaksh, Akshapatal Adhyaksh, he was the accountant general. Pattan Adhyaksh, he was the officer of port. Arthashastra tells us that around 21 taxes were collected from people living in those fortified towns, the Durga. Taxes were also collected from Sheath lands, the royal lands, where slaves and prisoners of war were employed. There was a minister who was called as Sheathadhyaksha. Right? They collected bhag from cultivators, taxes on orchards. Even felling of trees was taxed. The judicial system, if you look at it, it was divided into two type of courts. Dharma Sthaniya. This was for more like civil conflict, right? Civil conflict, property related issues, trade related conflicts, etc. This was a Kantak Shodhan. This was a criminal offense. The jail was known as Bandhangar, right? And the lockup was called as a Charak. Interesting. The district administration, Pradeshika, was pretty much equivalent to today's district magistrate. Pradeshika was pretty much just like today's district magistrate. He was assisted by Rajuka and Yukta. Yukta means a secretary, right? So Mauryans were able to rule. Please understand, beta, dekho samjho. A lot of this region had no, state as such. Mauryans were starting from scratch, so they did it all through bureaucracy. So the bureaucratic structure is very important. The Guptas will also create a massive empire in ancient times, but their bureaucracy is not important. because they did it through a lot of sandhi. They treated others as their vassals. They let them deal with their internal management. But Ashoka and all, they managed the entire things themselves, appointed their own officers, gave them salaries. In fact, Arthashastra lists down salaries that need to be paid from the prince to a simple infantry troop. The wages which need to be paid have been mentioned. These were some of the regional, divisions, the divisions. So, group of 10 village is being called as Sangrahana. 200 villages is being called as a Kharvatika. 400 villages, the group is called as a Dronamukh. And 800 villages together, they become known as a Sthaniya. The city administration. District is different. I hope you understand the difference between a district and a city, right? District will have villages as well. For example, I am right now in Lucknow city. So it'll have villages as well. So Lucknow district is the larger entity. City is a smaller portion of it. The urban area. Right? So as per Indica, the city was administered once again by 6 committees of 5 members each. Each of these committees had specific functions. Do you see how interesting? Industry and crafts, foreign visitors, a specific committee to entertain foreign visitors to ensure that they do not face any trouble. A census committee, right? A committee dealing with the weights, trading, markets, etc. Fair enough. However, the Arthashastra differs. Arthashastra, again, remember, Arthashastra is saying that this is how it should happen. You cannot take it that, this is how it happened in modern times. Remember, so Arthashastra says that the cities must be administered by the Nagarika with the help of Gop, an accountant, and Sthanika, a tax collector. Sthanika. There was also an officer who was known as Maha Amatya Sparsa. Maha Amatya Pasarpa. Right? He controlled spy network. He controlled the spy network known as, the spies were called as a Gudh Purush. Pati Vedak, the messenger carriers, and Vishkanyas have also been referred to. Vishkanyas probably imply the classic honey trap, isn't it? Gud Purush were of 2 types. Sanchari and Sansathan. Sanchari were ones who would travel from one place to other, maybe as beggars or as dressed as saints, etc. And Sansathan would be located at a fixed place. With this, I would like to take an excuse from you guys. Right? This is the entire material which I have for today. And I wouldn't like to, because with the presentation, it's easier for you to focus. And for me as well. Right? So I would advise you to, I would request you to please allow me to close the class today at 8 itself. And there will not be any classes from my side tomorrow and day after as well. Okay. I hope you guys are not pissed off too much. Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks, Pandan. Good night. I will have to move. I have a couple of things to take care of. And I'll see you guys later. Okay. Bye. Good night. Have fun. Good night, Akshita. Bye bye. Everyone, take care. Good night, Gunashekhar. Good night, Ashanti. Aditya, bye bye, bete. Bye, Dikshita. Bye, Gurnu. Bye, Spandan. Bye, Ankit. All of you, man. Take care. Bye, Padmashri. Bye bye, bete.